Alright y'all, welcome back to video 2 in this series. If you missed video 1, I just published it on Sunday, and in that video, I actually kind of talked about some of the challenges I had with grubs and how I solved them. So I'll link up there in the eye to that one if you haven't seen it. This video here goes on, and honestly, this is going to be a little bit of a rant. I'm going to kind of go through a couple of St. Augustine myths that I've been seeing, especially because down here in South Florida, our lawns are still growing actively, and I see all kinds of advice being given in certain places that, just, if I'm honest with you, it's wrong. So I'm not thinking about any one single individual in this video. I don't want you to get offended. I'm not coming down on one person. You're not going to hear me talk to anybody specifically. I'm just talking out in the air in general about St. Augustine grass and some of the things that I'm seeing that are just dead wrong. Let's get into the video. Okay, now I want to bust a myth. And one of the myths that I want to bust is about fertilization and large patch disease. And this will also equate to those of you with cool season grass, because you have brown patch disease, which is also Rhizoctonia. I actually got both this year. It's been a heck of a year for disease in my St. Augustine grass. But anyway, I just wanted to show you that I have large patch again. I've had it last year. It's not as bad this year. I'm only seeing it in one spot. Now, the reason I'm only seeing it in that spot, last year it kind of moved around. I'll show you that video I did on that. I believe the cold is suppressing it, which is great. Cold weather can help suppress the disease. It doesn't want to move when it's in the 30s. It's like you, it wants to just bundle up and snuggle. But the thing about it is, as soon as we get warm temperatures again, it'll start moving again. So I got to get on top of it. But I got a little bit right there, and it's just telltale. You can see when you pull it up, pull up the St. Aug right here, and you'll see that it's got this dark black right down in here. That's telltale. Obviously the orangey look that you see is also telltale, but it's really this brown black color that you get right in this area of the St. Augustine grass patch. Also the shape, even though I don't have much here, it kind of makes these irregular circles. So, but the real reason that I know this is large patch is because of another thing I want to address. What I want to address here is the myth, and the myth is that you hear all the time, and I see it all the time in forums and places online, is that over-fertilization of the lawn causes large patch, or over-fertilization of the lawn causes brown patch, and that is exactly not true. And you have to be careful when you say that to somebody, because you could actually make the problem worse. It's the day after Christmas. I'm super tempted to start taking these down already. I know you're supposed to leave them up through New Year's, but I'm done. Anyway, I got over here a little bit where it's a little bit less noisy. So here is the deal with disease. Fertilizing the lawn does not cause disease. Let me explain to you what causes a disease. What causes a disease is called the disease triangle, and it's three things coming together. One, you have to have the host. That is turf grass, and the turf grass has to be susceptible to number 2, which is the disease or the pathogen. So those two things have to be present: a willing host and the pathogen itself. And then the third thing that has to come together in order for the disease to be manifest is what is called the conditions. The conditions have to be right. Those are the three things that have to come together in order for the disease to manifest. So over-fertilizing does not cause the disease. You know what actually causes it? The presence of the disease is what causes the disease. The presence of a disease on a willing host. That is the things that cause the disease, and then there are factors that cause that to then manifest. But fertilizing alone does not cause fungus. And I know that I'm playing wordplay here with you, but it's dangerous when you don't get the words right, because words mean things. And when you say certain things to people in black and white, what they'll do is they'll take a black and white action, and that is not what you want to do when you get a disease. So to say it another way, telling someone that fertilizing caused the disease implies that there was disease spores in the bag of fertilizer, and by the fact of you throwing down fertilizer, you caused the disease, but that is not true. The spores can get in the lawn from anywhere. If the spores are anywhere in your neighborhood or anywhere within miles, they can get into your lawn. They can be carried in on people's shoes, on lawn equipment. Birds can carry them in, other animals. So the cause of the disease in your lawn didn't come out of the bag of fertilizer. And even if you over-fertilized, that did not cause the disease. Something external bringing the spores into your lawn, maybe even the wind or a storm, that is the initial cause of the infection, not fertilizing. So when you tell people that they got a disease because they over-fertilized, you know what they do? They stop fertilizing altogether, and that makes the problem worse. Let me ask you a question. When you get sick with a disease, if you stop taking in nutrients altogether, Is that gonna be good for your immune system or bad for it? So the key when you get a disease like large patch rhizoctonia in your lawn is to change up your fertilization, not to cut it off. But again, if you tell people that fertilization causes it, they tend to cut it off because that's how people think. Now what you do is you change things up. And when you do that, what you want to do is you want to move to lower nitrogen, you want to move to slower release nitrogen, and you want to move to higher potassium, because potassium helps a lawn that's in stress. This right here is a sample test bag. And when I say a sample test bag, it's a 45 pounder of a product that we actually released last year, 7020. We called it Summer Stress Blend. We're changing the name this year to just Stress Blend. But this is what you want, and I'll actually link to it below. We have small bags still available. They're super cheap too. But what this is 100% slow release nitrogen, 7%. That's it. But it's 100% slow release, 20% potash, and it's also loaded with micronutrients. It also smells like success because it has a little bit of biosolids in it. This is what you switch to when you have disease present. So you can still feed the lawn, again, loaded with micronutrients as well. So the lawn still gets what it needs. It still gets nutrients to help work its way through the disease. Now I'm also testing some fungicides, as well as this spreader here. Heard so much hype about this, I got one, and gonna be adding this to the spreader settings on all Yard Mastery products going forward, but gonna try out, this one's more for a leaf spot. This is what I use for large patch, but I'm actually gonna try this year here in the winter. Super expensive, only for those of you that are super crazy. I don't recommend you invest in this, honestly. It's just very expensive. Hey Bear, if you wanna do something for the DIY community, you could make this available in a smaller amount for DIYers. We'd love you for a long time if you did that. But that's really it. When you have fungus present like that, apply your fungicides, apply that fertilizer nutrient in the manner that I talked about, hope for the best from there. Now let me just prove to you something real quick. I'm not gonna show his house, but this lawn gets rhizoctonia large patch every single year. See all the brown in here? I don't wanna show his house, but see all the brown in through here? That's all rhizoctonia, all through there. He gets it, it's all the way up through there too. I see that lawn every day because I drive through it, and you know what? That lawn doesn't get any fertilization at all, 0. And look, it has large patch, even worse than my lawn. But wait a minute, if fertilizer causes large patch, how come a guy that doesn't do any fertilization has it 100 times worse than a guy that fertilizes a lot? That don't make no sense. Okay, so now let me just stop here and clarify a few things, because you know I like to be thorough. Where people are getting this idea that fertilization causes disease is they're reading things on university websites and they're reading them incorrectly. It is true that if you over-fertilize your lawn when disease is present and it causes a flush of growth, so we're talking about nitrogen, because like in the middle of the summer, for example, if you bomb your St. Augustine with a lot of nitrogen, especially straight urea nitrogen, it can cause a flush of growth. That flush of growth then allows more things for the disease to jump onto. It's like as the grass is growing, the disease is literally jumping onto it and following it, and it's making the disease spread. That's called a flush of growth, and that can exacerbate an already existing fungal problem, okay? That's what they're talking about with high nitrogen. They never say that high nitrogen or high fertilization causes the disease. They just say it can make it manifest worse. But there's a huge difference in that two sets of terminology, and that's where people end up going wrong. As I mentioned, if you tell people that fertilizing the lawn causes disease, which is what I see people saying, they'll just stop fertilizing altogether, and that's not good. Now, the other thing though to consider, especially this time of year in South Florida, it's very cold here. I'm only mowing every 14 days or so, 12 or 14 days. So actually, no matter what nitrogen source I put on the lawn, it's not gonna cause a flush. That's because the cold suppresses the growth. Just as I showed you earlier in the video, the cold suppresses the disease from spreading. The cold also suppresses flushes of growth in the St. Augustine itself. Now, I still recommend you switch to slow release sources of N and you go into high potash, but I just wanted to say, it's cold right now. So all the nitrogen you wanna bomb the lawn with is not gonna cause a flush of growth. So that kind of takes that whole thing out of the equation to begin with. But I do wanna still talk about fertilization, and that's where the next piece or the next myth I wanna bust is, outside of the fact that you might have disease, let's say that you don't have disease in your St. Augustine, can you still fertilize in the winter?